हम उस देश के वासी हैं जिसने दुनिया को युद्ध नहीं बुद्ध दिए हैं, शांति का संदेश दिया है। 21वीं सदी की आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी मिस्टर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप 21वीं सदी की आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी मिस्टर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप।
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic Defense Podcast. A few days ago, I read a very funny article by a Hindu feminist named Debanjali Bhattacharya. She tries to argue that ancient Hinduism was actually a very feminist religion. She basically cherry-picks Hinduism to make it look like Hinduism was a very feminist religion and tries to make it seem like things such as Shuti Pratha or burning of widows or child marriages were just modern inventions and they are not really part of Hinduism. So her argument in a nutshell was anything that is not part of feminism is not part of Hinduism, and anything that is part of feminism is part of Hinduism. So it's kind of like a cherry-picked version of Hinduism that she made for herself. And she tries to argue that this is how Hinduism is a feminist religion. Now this is a lie, obviously, and her version of Hinduism is very dangerous because Hinduism is not and never has been a feminist religion. As a matter of fact, it is probably the most anti-feminist religion you can ever think of. Now it is true that in Hinduism there are a number of Hindu goddesses that are worshipped and revered. However, these Hindu goddesses have nothing to do with how Hinduism actually treats women. So in this video, inshallah, we will discuss this. Another thing to note is that if you read her article, it becomes quite obvious that she has deep hatred for Islam, because she says in her article, meandering through centuries of millennia, diverted by confluence by invaders from Middle East. By the way, I'm gonna say that again, by invaders from Middle East. By the way, another thing that you have to know that oftentimes this is something they will do, whether it's feminist or Hindus, they will oftentimes use language such as to describe Muslims as invaders, as if like Muslims are not born in India. But anyway, so confluences by invaders from Middle East, Far East, and Europe. Several religious practices in the name of Hinduism seems to have evolved, adopted, diversified, or disappeared. She's talking about how India was invaded by Muslims and others. This is again, like I said, this is a very common talking point of the right-wing Hindu nationalist. Muslims are always the invaders, which is very funny language to use because modern-day India didn't exist back then. So how could the Muslims have invaded something that didn't even exist? Regardless of our stupid argument, let's take a look at her claims and see if they're true. Is Hinduism a feminist religion? Let's take a look and see how Hinduism treats women and how Islam treats women. So, in case you don't know, but Hinduism has actually a deep hatred for daughters. In many places in Hinduism, it teaches that a son should be preferred over a daughter. In Hinduism, there are many hymns and prayers which you can use to pray for a son instead of a daughter. Especially when women are pregnant, they have many prayers which you can pray so that you have a son instead of a daughter. Hindu scriptures have a ritual called Pumsavan Sanskar for the birth of a son. There are thousands of verses in Vedas, but not a single one verse for the birth of a daughter. The Vedas rather has this prayer which you can use to pray for a son instead of a daughter. It reads, Asvata on the Sami tree, there a male birth is certified. There is the finding of a son. This bring we to the common woman folk. The father sows the genial seed, the woman tends and fosters it. This is the finding of a son. Thus hath Prajapati declared, Prajapati, Anumati, Shinivali have ordered it. Elsewhere may he effect the birth of maids, but here prepares a boy. You can read about this Artava Veda, book number 6, hymn number 11. Now if you notice that in the hymn, it says that elsewhere may he, and they're speaking to God, that elsewhere God may give the birth of a daughter, but here give the birth of a son. So they're choosing a son over a daughter. This is what Hinduism is teaching you, that you should prefer son over a daughter, to pray for a son over a daughter. Now, according to the commentary of Vedic scholar Acharya Vedanath, using the ceremony will guarantee the birth of a boy. Now, some may say, well, it's just for people who want a boy. Except the problem is there's not a single prayer that you can say for the birth of a daughter. So this clearly shows that Hinduism prefers a boy rather than a daughter. Now, if this was just one verse, I could understand. However, unfortunately, both Vedas and Puranas are absolutely littered with verses and teachings that say that having daughters is evil or bad. Here are some examples. In hymn 323, it says, "From thee we banished and expelled the cause of thy sterility. This in another place we lay apart from thee and far removed, as arrow to be quiver. So let the male embryo enter thee, then from thy side be born a babe, 10 months old, thy hero son. Bring forth a male, bring forth a son. Another male shall follow him. The mother shalt thou be sons born, and hereafter to be born. With the auspicious general flow, where the steers propagate their kind, do thou obtain thyself a son, be thou a fruitful mother cow. I give thee power to bear a child. Within thee pass the germ of life. Obtain a son, O woman, who shall be blessing unto thee. Be thou a blessing unto him. May these celestial herbs, whose sire was heaven, the earth their mother, and their root the ocean, may those celestial healings, plants assist thee to obtain a son." You can read about this in Artava Veda, book 3, hymn number 23. Another verse in Artava Veda also says the same thing. It says, "Be not divided, dwell ye here, reach the full time of human life, with sons and grandsons, sports and play. Rejoice in your happy home." You can read about this in Artava Veda, book 14, hymn number 1, verse number 22. Now, in case you're confused, this is a prayer of a wedding. After you get married, this is something you have to pray. Now, here, if you notice carefully, the Veda says, "Reach the full time of human life with sons and grandsons." Sons and grandsons. Nowhere does it say anything in regards to having daughters or granddaughters. Because in Hinduism, having daughters or granddaughters is not considered a good thing. Rigveda also says the same thing. It says, "Be ye not parted, dwell ye here, reach the full time of human life, with son and grandsons, sport and play, rejoicing in your own abode." You can read about this in Rigveda, book 10, hymn number 85, verse number 42. So as you can clearly see, Hinduism prefers a male child over a female child. There are plenty of prayers and hymns in the Vedas that pray for a boy. Talks about having a son and grandson. However, there's nothing in the Vedas that wishes for a daughter. There's no prayer or hymns, nothing as far as I know, that wishes for a daughter. Based on this, let me make an argument. Premise 1. According to the theory of many Hindu feminists, Hinduism is a feminist religion. Premise 2. If we find any evidence that contradicts this theory, it would be proven false. Premise 3. We see in Artava Veda, book 6, hymn number 11, book 3, hymn number 23, Rigveda, book 10, hymn number 85, that according to Hinduism, it's better to have a son over a daughter, which contradicts the Hindu feminist theory. Conclusion. Therefore, the Hindu feminist theory about Hinduism being a feminist religion is proven false, since feminism argues for man and woman being equal, and Hinduism, as we see, clearly does not. Now, some secular Hindus or Hindu atheists will argue, but these are just man-made texts. Hinduism is how we interpret it to be. It's just a way of life, bro. Hinduism is whatever we make it. Well, don't worry, guys. I have an argument for you as well. Premise 1. Hinduism is whatever the Hindus believe it or interprets it to be. So, Hindu feminist can interpret as a feminist religion. Premise 2. If this is the case, then a Hindu man who hates women or daughters can interpret Hinduism in a way that prefers sons over daughters. He can use it using the Vedic verses I mentioned, which contradicts the Hindu feminist theory. Conclusion. Therefore, Hinduism is still not a feminist religion. Now, what makes Hindu feminism even more dangerous is that in India, killing female infant or embryo is a big problem. According to an article by The Guardian, almost 10 million girl fetuses are thought to be aborted in India simply because they are girls. The article says, the birth of up to 10 million girls in India may have been prevented by selective abortion in the past 20 years. Researchers say today 500,000 babies are aborted every year because they are girls. Even though the termination on the grounds of gender was outlawed in India in the year 1994, according to a study published online by Lancet Medical Journal, Prabhat Jha from the University of Toronto and Rajesh Kumar at Postgraduate Institution of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh, India, and colleagues studied data from 1.1 million households and found that the likelihood of having a baby girl as second or third child was significantly lower in households where there was no boy. We conservatively estimate that the prenatal sex determination and selective abortion accounts for 0.5 million missing girls yearly, according to Professor Jha. Now, this is not even the worst part. In Vedas, female foeticide or aborting female children is actually encouraged. In Krishna Yajurveda, it says, they go to the final bath. They deposit the pots but lift up the vessels. For Vayu, therefore, they deposit a daughter on birth and a son they lift up. Again, here we clearly see, according to Vedas, that in ancient Vedic period, sons were preferred and girls were rejected or aborted. But it doesn't say aborted, but it implies that they were rejected. As a matter of fact, it gets worse. According to Manusmriti, a mother who only gives birth to only daughters should be abandoned and a new wife should be chosen. It says, a barren woman shall be abandoned in the 8th year after marriage. A woman whose children die in infancy shall be abandoned in the 9th year. A woman who gives birth only to daughters, now listen to this carefully, a woman who gives birth only to daughters shall be abandoned in the 11th year, and a woman who speaks unpleasant words shall be abandoned immediately. You can read about this in Law of Manu, chapter 6, verse number 81. Now in Devi Bhagavatam, there is a really funny story of a king named Pandu. He was once in the jungle and saw a sage or a righteous priest having sex with a deer. Yeah, I'm not joking. The sage was also in the shape of a deer. So, as usual, he thought that it was just a normal deer and shot it and killed the sage or the religious priest. Then he realized that it wasn't a deer at all, but a religious priest or sage. Then the sage cursed him. Now, besides the obvious issue here, I have some issues with this story. First of all, why the hell is a religious priest having sex with a deer? I mean, why the hell does the sage look like a deer? I mean, was he that horny to have sex with a deer? Anyway, so after being cursed, the king was upset and he left his kingdom to live in the jungle with his 2 wives. They went with him. Then it says, dwelling in the hermitage of the Munis, Pandu listened to the Dharma Sutras and practiced severe penance. Once a while, he was listening to the religious discourse of Munis. He heard unmistakably the Munis telling that the man who is sonless can never go to heaven, so he must get a son somehow or other. You can read about this in Devi Bhagavatam, book number 2, hymn 6, verses 36 to 48. It's not a hymn, by the way. It's more like a story. But yeah, you can read it there. I'll put the link below. So here we clearly see that the Hindu Shastra has a rule, which is in order to go to heaven, you must have a son. Without a son, you cannot go to heaven. In India, killing female infants and female fetuses is very, very common. According to one article by Mirror News in India, a female fetus was found in a garbage dump. The fetus was half eaten by dogs. It was covered in clothes and was then thrown into the trash can. In another incident, a 3-month-old baby girl was dumped in a bathroom of a temple. In another incident, in Maharashtra, 19 aborted female fetuses were found dumped near a stream in Sangali. In another case, a severed foot, and this is a very brutal one, a severed foot of a woman and possibly her female fetus was also found in Chandriga's Sector 17. Now these piece of shits hate baby girls so much that they would literally chop the possible mother into pieces rather than have her give birth to a baby girl or baby daughter. Or at least that's what possibly happened. Now this is not all. What's interesting is that in the year 2016, there was a very popular TV show in India hosted by the famous Bollywood actor named Amir Khan called Satyamev Jayate. Now, in the first episode of this show, they discussed the issue of female foeticide in India. In the first few segments of the show, Amir Khan interviews a woman named Amisha Yagnik. Her story in particular is quite terrifying. According to her, after her marriage, when she first became pregnant, her father-in-law and mother-in-law took her to a hospital after they learned that she was going to have a girl. They took her for a checkup and gave her an injection. She passed out, and after she gained consciousness, she was no longer pregnant. Her father and her mother-in-law forcefully aborted her baby child because they wanted a son, not a daughter. She said that this happened to her 6 times in 8 years.
स्वागत है आपका अमीशा जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आने का। आपकी बच्ची बड़ी प्यारी है, क्या नाम है इसका?
काम्या भट्ट।
काम्या क्या उम्र है इसकी?
8 साल।
8 साल की। अमीशा जी बताइए हमें कि आपकी शादी किस साल में हुई?
मेरी शादी 1 दिसंबर 2000 में हुई थी।
तो इस बात को 11 साल हो चुके हैं।
हाँ।
शादी के बाद आप पहली दफ़ा कब पता चला आपको कि आप माँ बनने वाली हैं?
मुझे पता चला 15/8/2001।
1 साल के बाद। तो फिर क्या हुआ उसके बाद?
कोई जाहिर है फर्स्ट टाइम कोई भी लड़की खुशी होगी
माँ बनने से।
हाँ। फिर मेरे सास ससुर और मेरे पति वो भी सब खुश थे। फिर उन्होंने बोला कि चलो डॉक्टर के पास चलते हैं चेकअप के लिए। फिर नॉर्मल चेकअप हो गया। इस बात को 2-3 महीने हो गए। थोड़े टाइम बाद उन्होंने फिर से बोला कि चलो एक बार सब ठीक ठाक है या नहीं। इस बहाने से ले गए हैं और सोनोग्राफी सब करवाई। फिर इंजेक्शन दे दिया और जैसे इंजेक्शन दे दिया मुझे कुछ पता ही नहीं चला। जब मैं होश में आई तब मेरी बेटी भी नहीं थी, मतलब मेरी प्रेगनेंसी भी नहीं थी।
बच्चा गिरा दिया गया और आपको इसके बारे में पता भी नहीं था?
कुछ भी नहीं पता।
आपसे कुछ पूछा नहीं, मतलब आपसे डॉक्टरों ने कोई बात नहीं की इससे? आप माँ हैं।
उन लोगों की डॉक्टर के साथ पहले ही बात हो गई थी। मेरे जहन में तो ऐसी कुछ बात ही नहीं थी। मुझे तो कुछ पता ही नहीं।
लेकिन क्यों ऐसा किया उन्होंने? आपके पति ने और आपके पति के घर वालों ने ऐसा किया, राइट? तो उन्होंने ऐसा क्यों किया?
उनको बेटा चाहिए था। बेटे की चाह बहुत थी।
बेटे की चाह बहुत थी।
हाँ।
फिर दोबारा आपको कब पता चला कि आप प्रेग्नेंट हैं या आप माँ बनने वाली हैं?
2002 में।
उस दफा क्या हुआ?
सेम वाकया। उसी दफा भी
डॉक्टर के पास ले गए, चेकिंग कराया, लड़का है लड़की है, चेकिंग कराया?
उन लोगों की पहले ही डॉक्टर के साथ बात हो चुकी होती है।
अच्छा।
तो वहाँ पे डॉक्टर लोग कोड वर्ड इस्तेमाल करते हैं। लड़का होता है तो जय श्री कृष्ण बोलते हैं, लड़की होती है जय माता जी बोलते हैं। तो
अच्छा।
इतना तो कुछ पता ही नहीं था।
ऐसा कितनी बार हुआ आपके साथ?
8 साल में 6 बार।
I repeat, this happened to her 6 times in 8 years. 6 times a baby girl fetus was aborted because it was a girl. Now, I want to make something very clear. I'm not saying that this is not something that cannot happen to a Muslim woman. As a matter of fact, in the show, they also brought a Muslim victim named Parveen, who was also forced to abort her female child. However, here's the thing. In Islam, abortion is haram. What her piece of shit husband did is absolutely haram and wrong from an Islamic point of view. According to a fatwa by Islam QA, it is not permissible to abort a pregnancy at any stage unless there is a legitimate reason and within very precise limits. If the pregnancy is in the first stage, which is a period of 40 days, and aborting it serves a legitimate purpose or will ward off some kind of harm, then only then it is permissible to abort it. But aborting it at this stage for fear of difficulty of raising children or being unable to bear the cost and maintaining and educating them, or for fear for their future, or because the couple feel that they have enough children, this is not permissible. It is not permissible to abort a pregnancy when it is an alaka clot or mugda stage. When it's like a chewed lump of flesh, which are the second and third periods of 40 days each, until a trustworthy medical committee have decided that continuing the pregnancy poses a threat to the mother's well-being. So the only few cases you can get an abortion from an Islamic point of view is when there is a legitimate threat of life or risk in the life of the mother. So in order to save the mother's life, you can have an abortion, but that is one of the only cases where you can have an abortion. In other cases, abortion is haram, period. Now, in all major Abrahamic religion, abortion is always seen as something evil. In the Western world, abortion is a big hot topic because some consider this murder. Not only that, in Islam, having daughters are encouraged. For example, there is a hadith by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in which he says, if someone has 3 daughters and is patient with them and clothes them from his wealth, they will be a shield against the fire for him. Read about this in Al-Adab Al-Mufrad 76 Sahih. It's been classified as Sahih by Sheikh Albani. Now, here the Prophet is teaching us that as a father, if you love your daughters and take care of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from the hellfire itself just for that. There is another hadith narrated by Aisha radhiyallahu anha which says, a lady along with her 2 daughters came to me asking me for some alms or some food. But she found nothing with me except 1 date. So Aisha radhiyallahu anha didn't have any other food, so she gave her some dates, which I gave to her, and she divided it between her 3 daughters. And then she got up and went away. Then the Prophet ﷺ came in, and I informed him about this story. He said, whoever is in charge of put to test by these daughters and treats them generously, then they will act as a shield for him from the hellfire. You can read about this in Sahih al-Bukhari 5995. Here again, the Prophet is teaching us that loving your daughters will protect you from the hellfire. Another reason why these hadiths are so significant is because before Islam came, the Arabs were just like the Hindus. They used to kill their own daughters or used to bury them alive. Islam came and completely abolished this practice. This is why the Prophet reminds us why it is so important to love your daughters. We all know how much the Prophet loved his daughters, how much he loved Fatima. This is also a sensitive topic for me because I have nearly 9 cousins who are all female, yet we never dumped them on some garbage can, because in Islam it teaches us that life of a human being, whether it's a girl or a boy, it doesn't matter. They all have value. Whether you have a son or a daughter, it doesn't matter. You have to love them equally. So I ask you to think and decide for yourself which religion has the better teaching. Is it Hinduism which teaches you that having a son is better than having a daughter, which teaches you that killing your own daughter is okay, which teaches you that you cannot go to heaven without a son? Or is it Islam, which teaches you that loving your daughters are so important that it can protect you from the hellfire itself? A religion that teaches you that it's okay if you only have daughters. A religion that teaches you that you should love your daughters even if it's hard for you. Now, if you're a sincere person, or even if you're a Hindu, I think the answer is obvious here. Regardless, I'll let you decide. With that, I'm done with this video. Inshallah, my next video will be about apostate prophet. I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys later. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.